You're listening to Neurodivergent Solutions, a bite-sized episode of the Divergent Paths podcast with me, Dr. Regina McMenomy. I am a doctor, but not the medical kind. Today, I'm here to drop some quick insights to help you live, work, and lead with your whole self, because it's my mission to make your weirdness feel like home. So as I get started on this episode, I just want to make sure I start with a very strong and clear statement. Masking is not a moral failing. It's not lying. It's not fake. It's a survival instinct. And it comes from a deep-rooted need for belonging. In this episode, let's talk about why we learn to mask, where it comes from, why we sometimes teach our kids how to mask, and why releasing shame is the first step forward toward genuine self-acceptance. So let's talk about this. Why do we learn to mask in the first place? What is it about interacting in the world as a neurodivergent person that leads to masking? So masking starts very early. Most children, and like I've said in other episodes, for me, I had no idea I had been masking. A lot of late diagnosed people will not understand that they have been hiding parts of themselves because it starts so young. It is also reinforced by praise. When you behave in neurotypical or neuronormative ways, children, young adults, everyone pretty much is praised for behaviors that fit into those norms. So it's hard to just go against someone saying, I'm so glad, thank you for being so quiet, especially if you're a child and, were raised in a time when children should be seen and not heard. You're so well behaved, you're so grown up. That was one I heard a lot as a child. Masking is also self-protective, like it is something we are doing to protect ourselves. We learn to anticipate rejection. We learn to anticipate criticism. We learn that bullying is a reality for a great many of us. And we learn what it feels like very early in our lives, usually to be excluded. Masking also relates to rejection sensitivity. So if you are already hyper aware of criticism and you're worried about being rejected, masking is going to be a way that you feel you will avoid some of that rejection. You're going to learn to keenly observe the behaviors of those around you in order to help yourself fit in. And that is vital. Survival is no joke. Learning to fit in is really important at every stage of life. And I want to make sure this is also clear. You're not broken because you learned how to mask. And you're not broken at all. That was how you needed to survive. And you're not failing if you continue through your neurodivergent awareness journey to mask in certain situations. You might have family members that you have to mask around. You might have to mask at work. Like, these are things that are vital and important, and that sense of belonging, especially in places that are your safety and your health and wellness and well-being are contingent on. So these are not failings. This is a survival mechanism, and it is very important. So we tend to teach our children how to mask, especially if we're late diagnosed and we've had kids and we didn't know we were neurodivergent. We likely have taught our children how to mask. Sometimes I have, and some of my friends have taught our children intentionally how and when to mask, for their survival and their protection. This is a place where you're going to need to make eye contact. This is the type of eye contact that's expected of you. This is a place where you're going to need to still your body a little bit more than maybe you do at home. Or this is a place where if you're going to fidget, you're going to want to make sure that whatever fidget you have is going to be quiet, right? It's not going to make noise and it's not going to be distracting. That's a big one, I think, for school, right? If you're going to have a fidget, you want it to be quiet. I am often fidgeting with my hair ties while we record episodes. That's what I'm doing. As I record this episode, my hands are fidgeting with my hair tie because a hair tie is quiet. It's, made out of a silky fabric, and I'm rolling it back and forth in my fingers. And you'd have no idea looking at me on screen. You can't hear it in the recording that I am fidgeting with it. So we teach certain aspects of masking to our children because it is important for them to learn to do this. And parents worry about their children being ostracized or being treated as an outsider because it's likely, as a late diagnosed adult, you have had the experience of being ostracized and not being treated as a member of a group at one point in time or another. It's almost impossible to have lived any kind of life and not had that experience. And we very much don't want to see our children burdened with that experience. A lot of us who are late diagnosed were punished or were treated differently or badly for being too sensitive, for being too much, for being too loud. And, we have tamped down on those tendencies. We talk too much. That wasn't something that I had when I was a child. It's definitely something I fall into now that I have unmasked because I've just leaned into my need for external processing. Most of us are growing up in environments where neuronormativity is the default and that we are, expected to behave in these ways. And those are skills that we pass on mindfully and sometimes unconsciously to the small humans that have been left in our charge. So one of the things that I've worked to do with my child as she was growing up might seem sort of trivial, but given my life and how it was for me growing up, this was not a trivial thing. I chose to allow my daughter to clothe herself at pretty much as early as she possibly could. So she might have been 2, maybe younger than that. When she could start picking out her clothes, I allowed her to pick out her clothes and to wear whatever she wanted to wear. I didn't put a lot of pressure on her about her appearance. I have been very body neutral, where I do not talk about bodies in ways that have any kind of shame involved in them. I talk about my body in a way where I talk about it being strong and capable and amazing the vast majority of the time. And I have done the same for her. But in appearance, I've let her pick out her outfits, regardless of how they looked. And, when she was little, it was fun and cute. And, people generally aren't thinking too much about that. I anticipated that she would find social pressure once she got into school. When she got to be a certain age, she would find some social pressure around her clothing. But I always told her that clothing should be comfortable. Clothing should serve us. It can be, and it is lovely when it is an outside expression of who we authentically are. But I didn't put any pressure on how I felt she needed to look. And this is radically different from how I was raised, because I was raised that my appearance was very important to being loved. Very important for me to have the right hair, to wear the right clothes, to look a right way. When I got older, to wear proper makeup that, flattered my features and made me look pretty. Just last night, my small human asked me if I went through a goth phase. And I was like, well, I was a theater kid, so I wore a lot of black, but I didn't wear a lot of dark, heavy black makeup because I knew that that would not be something that my mom would approve of. She would not have approved of any kind of like goth, like pale makeup with black lips or something like that. She would have hated, absolutely hated. And I was not allowed when I was young and through most of high school, I was not allowed to wear jeans. It was only when I started working my first job and started being able to buy my own clothes that I really was able to lean into wearing jeans. And I swear to this day that I love wearing jeans because I was not allowed to wear them when I was younger. They really became a part of my liberation and of breaking away from the confines of how my mom wanted me to look, because there were just very defined parameters in terms of appearance that I was working under as a child, as a young adult, and even as a young adult, even after I was, no longer a teenager and I was in my 20s. I had a lot of pressure from my mom about how I needed to appear through, even a couple of years before she died, she was still critiquing my appearance when it didn't meet the standards of how she wanted me to look. And I knew going into raising a assigned female at birth child that I was going to be breaking that pattern. If I broke none others, she was going to feel empowerment with being able to choose her clothing. She is starting 6th grade this year, and I am delighted at the fact that she has leaned into choosing her clothes and starting to express what is an absolutely amazing personality through her clothing choices. And this is something that came on her timeline. She has found this. She finds it empowering now. She finds it exciting. It doesn't have a lot of pressure built up around it. There is, I'm no doubt that there is pressure to conform involved in this, but she is doing it in a way where she is comfortable and she is choosing things that align with who she is, within the confines of kind of how her peer group looks, but not feeling the pressure to completely emulate them. And it is delightful to watch. And I feel really good about how this has kind of evolved for her. So I didn't protect her. And in this, like I said, she is still conforming in some big structures to how her friend group dresses. I didn't protect her from masking entirely. I can't. None of us can protect our neurodivergent children from learning how to mask. I did give her space to build her self before she started working in that pressured environment, and where she has this opportunity now to create this identity. And I was able to do that because I have framed masking with her with compassion. It is so important that we look at masking with compassion for us, compassion for our children, compassion for the people around us who are masking. This is really important. Masking helps you survive. So one of the questions when you start to experience unmasking, have self-compassion, give yourself some grace around this. Ask yourself, when you are masking, is this still serving me? Is this an automatic response? Do I need to protect myself here? What will happen if I don't protect myself in this environment? Is there power involved in that? Is there power involved in the authenticity? Because that's what the bridge will be between the survival masking and you expressing your authentic self, is allowing yourself to have compassion. Forgive yourself for what you had to do at the time to survive, learning how to be safe without hiding. Ask yourself, I get to choose, or say to yourself, I get to choose who sees the real me and who I let see who I really am. And that is a privilege. And it is a privilege. And the more you get used to doing it, the more you're going to want to do it. I promise. I promise. I will not promise you a mask-free life. There is probably no way to have a mask-free life, but I do promise you that empowerment and that authenticity, you will start to revel in it and it will make you feel fabulous, and you will want to keep doing it because you know how good it feels. So if this episode resonated with you, I invite you to explore this topic further. Head to divergentpathsconsulting.com, sign up for my newsletter where I talk a lot about the cost of masking, how to unlearn shame around neurodivergence in general, but masking in particular, and how to raise and support neurodivergent kids without forcing them to conform. So thank you so much for listening. Until next time, stay regulated and stay yourself.